be in recovery, and I'm Felice.
And I'm blessed and grateful to be in recovery, and I'm Haiti. We are recording this call, just so everyone knows. Morning. So this is our Why Wait for Recovery community meeting, and this is a Memorial Day weekend. And we are so glad that you are here with us. We know you had other things that you could be doing, and you chose to put your health and your happiness first, so welcome. We're a community of men and women. In fact, we're a community of a whole mixed community of different
Yes, we are.
people.
Man and woman.
Well, there's
Yes,
others
but you're
online.
not the, yeah. You're
So we are here because we're here to share our experience, strength, and hope with each other so that we can solve our common challenge, because we really are not alone. We are either emotional overeaters, compulsive overeaters, food addicts. We have an unhealthy relationship with food, and it really isn't so much about what we're eating, but what's eating us. That's a key.
And I'm going to interrupt you because that's what I do, I interrupt. We find in recovery that not only do we have an unhealthy relationship with food, but we have unhealthy relationships with a whole bunch of stuff emotionally. And so I'm not talking about just your husband or your kids, but we have kind of all kinds of unhealthy relationships, and especially with ourselves. And so that's something that we talk about as well.
So our meetings are free, and this is a no judgment zone, so please feel free to discuss whatever it is, because it is the shame and the guilt that we carry within us that makes us ill, and that perpetuates our disease as well. And we believe that long-lasting recovery lies in a balance between mind, body, and spirit, and without all three, when something's out of whack, it manifests in other ways.
Yeah, and we talk about mind, body, spirit, and community. Because without this community, that we don't get that mind, body, spirit.
Right. As an addict, as a food addict, I know when I'm isolating. So the worst place for me to be is inside my head. And the worst time for me to be inside my head is when I'm alone. So being in community helps me realize that there's a wider world beyond myself. It opens me up to others, and every time we have a meeting, I learn something. I come out having gained something from that experience. So we are both in recovery.
We are.
Yes, I've had challenges with food ever since I was 7 years old. I did post some pictures on Facebook, which is quite interesting how people see the superficial side. I'm really fat on the inside. It doesn't look that way, but yes, I am. I was using amphetamines and supplements since I was 12. I have been up, I've been down, I've been demoralized, I have been guilty, I've been shamed, I have done crazy, strange things within my disease to justify using and abusing myself. I have bullied myself for years, and a lot of it, funny enough, comes down to resentment. Resentment and jealousy. Things that are held inside me, actions other people did. The poison that I took hoping other people would die, essentially.
Right.
So I went through so many years of blaming my sister, who took over getting the attention that I was getting when I was younger, my parents for doing the things that they did, for my friends, for my spouse, for all these. It was always other people were at fault for why I was using and abusing myself. So resentment has really filled a lot of my time, I've thought.
Yeah, and so resentment is a perspective, right? And so I can have whatever it is that I'm having with you, like even whatever it is that I'm having with you, this relationship that I'm having with you right now. I could choose to look at something that you're doing that's pissing me off, or I can choose to, even when we aren't on the best of terms, look at whatever's going on as a learning experience.
Right. So in terms of learning experience, I'd love to see what other people feel as well. Because I know one of my biggest resentments was 20 years ago when we immigrated and I left South Africa and I left my friends and my family. I resented a lot of things that my husband did. I mean, he was working his ass off. I didn't see him for 5 years. I never saw my husband. Essentially, he left early, came home late. I was on my own, had no friends, had no community. And I resented that experience and gained 80 pounds in that first year of when we first came. So I'd love, firstly, everyone to be able to check in, say hi, and maybe share something that comes up as well.
So, good morning again. I'm blessed and grateful to be in recovery, and my name is still Felice. So some years ago, my 17-year-old son died, and that was the beginning of my addiction. And I resented just about everything and everyone for every reason. And because of that resentment, I was fearful of everyone and everything for any reason. And that fear and resentment defined my life. And as I started using my addiction, defined my life as well. So I was stuck in resentment and in fear, and then an addict. And that was really interesting to learn how to work through. So thanks for letting me share. Resentment? Anything you can think of?
Not that I can think
You can
of.
pass.
Pass.
Resentment.
It's like, I'm on the spot.
Yeah, there's probably some resentment in there. I know my older sister and I are super close, but she was always a little bit smarter than I was.
And by the way, she's brilliant. The one who's talking about the other one who's smart. She's friggin' brilliant.
Right. And so I think that there was always a bit of a competition between us, you know, and we were both larger growing up. But she was the one who decided to get her life in order first, and she totally did it without any help. Well, I mean, she got a black belt in Taekwondo, and like, you know, like all of these crazy things, and it was always like, okay, she did this, fine, whatever. So I'm sure there was resentment there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Allison.
Hi, Allison.
There's a lot of resentment, but my brain can't process it right now.
Can you think of any one thing, or not right now? 'Cause we could always get back to you if you wanna, if you want us to.
Okay.
So, okay.
My name is Allie.
Hi, Allie.
Hi. I can't really think of one thing in particular, but I do know I was never really bullied so much about my weight. I do remember the one person giving me issues a lot to make me feel bad was my mom. And I don't think she did it so much to hurt me. Mm-hmm. It was more like that was her way of getting at me. Like if I did something that she didn't like and, you know, I was misbehaving or whatever and we were having an argument, that was what she would do because she knew that she could upset me and that would pretty much end the argument.
That's ouch.
So I kind of, she made me I was very careful with everybody else, okay? I didn't want to get made fun of, I didn't want to get bullied or whatever, so I kind of was the aggressor a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
So I, you know, if I'm being mean to people, people are afraid of me, then they're not going to pick on me. And it wasn't like physical bullying or anything like that, it was just more, I think I put off this standoffish thing where people didn't really want to talk to me because they assumed, oh, she's not a nice person, so we're going to stay away from her. And that's kind of how I lived for a really long time. So I think that has a lot to do
Very
with my
insightful.
weight.
Thank you.
Can
Thank
I
you for
just-
sharing. Yes.
Can I just say something? Yesterday I actually brought up 2 resentments that I've had before. I was 240 pounds, so I have certain resentments. We went to a concert and I resented that the seats were so small that I was always sitting on top of the person next to me. And the airline seats, I mean, next weekend.
Airlines. I mean, really.
Right, I mean, the space is like this big. I had a
No
guy
Spirit.
driving on traffic that cut in front of me yesterday that really I was resentful for. I get really resentful really quickly.
And again, I'm just going to say, because of the resentments that you brought up, since they're easier ones, resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So somebody cut you off in traffic, you're running around all pissed off, and how dare they? And they cut me off. They don't know, they don't care, it ain't affecting them, and it gives you a stomachache. So it's just, it's kind of silly thinking, and it's really what we've learned, by the way. So that's one thing in recovery as well, is that we're going to unlearn the things that we've learned so that we can live a happy, healthier life. Morning.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Ashley.
Ashley.
I guess my resentment, most of it is towards my sister. Just because she's the firstborn, I think she gets it. And she's always supposed to do something, and she was also chubby, and now she's thin, and she's kept it off for years. There's more in there, but I don't.
Awesome. And so you grew up like that with that resentment since you were little?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a tough one too. Thank you for sharing that. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Ellen, and I would say, I guess for resentment, I think in this stage of my life, because I wouldn't say it was ever a childhood thing. I didn't really have issues as a child, but as an adult, trying to be a working mom, trying to be a good wife, trying to be a good mom to my children, and juggling it, being a teacher, trying to take care of the kids in my classroom. I think it's a pretty heavy load at times, and I work and then I tutor to get my son through college as well. So I think that exhaustion is huge, and I used to be able to plan things better, like meal plans better, but now at the point when I'm finished my day of work and then I've done my second job and then I've tried to get my kids, you know, homework done and got them to their ball fields, because they're all at ball fields, all of them. I probably put myself last, and then I reach out for whatever feels freaking good. So, so that could be the drive-through because I ran out of time, but they ate. It could be I dropped them at the field and I went to get that hamburger that freaking tasted great, right? But I'm just tired, so the glass of wine feels good, and then that walk, I'm supposed to do the walk or whatever. Who the heck has time for the walk? I'm exhausted, like there's nothing left, I'm on empty. So I guess maybe that's part of my resentment, but I can't like keep up.
And so I have so much to say about that. Like we could have an entire meeting about what you just said, because the things that you say are things that we all say. Every single one of us in this room has had some excuse. And so, sorry, but we've all had some excuse. You talk about creating chaos in your own life so that you can look at the chaos and say, well, of course I'm going to use. And so for me with my sponsees, excuse me, I tell them when they're talking like that that's their addiction talking, because that does give you that excuse to go through the drive-thru.
It makes me feel good, like I can definitely do it.
Right,
I deserve it.
and you feel good for about however long, maybe a couple of minutes, and then after, you're beating yourself up.
Right.
So you reward yourself by punishing yourself.
Right. I think
Right.
also that resentment comes in of where you can't wear every hat well, so you try to choose one, but then you feel really shitty that you didn't wear the other two hats well. So maybe you were a good mom that day, but you couldn't handle the other. Something falls to the
So
cracks.
that's so much chatter in your head.
Yeah.
And that's this whole big control thing, what we're in control of and not in control of, which is one of, as my sponsees know, one of the first things that we learn to work on. And everything is just your perspective.
And the other, one of the things that I found as well is that the strive for perfection, that perfect mother, that perfect wife, that the perfection,
Straight A student.
the always
best in
needing to
everything you
be
do.
perfect, put so much pressure on ourselves that we take ourselves out of the picture, that God forbid something drops. Sometimes what happens if the kids arrive late? What happens if the meal isn't perfect? What happens if we drop the ball? Everything's going to fall apart. So that also starts adding fuel to the fire. And then becomes the other part is we so perfect we can't ask for help. So it becomes even more isolating. So then I start resenting the kids that they're not helping cook and they're not helping doing certain things. And my husband's not stepping up, and I start resenting him because
that
I've
argument
taken
definitely takes place in the
everything
household.
on.
Every one of those.
And then I got beat myself up with the hamburger. And
well,
not only
really,
one.
the best one is
A
the
really
wine.
delicious hamburger.
The wine really works because if I drink wine, then I can let it go.
And I'm going to
But the
tell you
hamburger, I
guys,
can't. I just feel crappy about it.
something that we learn also in recovery is about ego. And so I never really understood that, because my thing was like, I don't, my ego's inflated. I don't think that I'm better than you. That's not what it's about. But in fact, our ego is the way I think you see me. And so I'm going to do whatever it is that I have to do to be perfect, so that when you see me, you tell Robin, Felice is awesome. She's so wonderful. She's so perfect. She shows up, God's gift to all of us, right? And that's because the way that you see me, I've made that more important than the way I feel. And so when I rely on your opinion to choose how I feel about myself, I got a problem. Right? Because the opinion that I'm supposed to rely on is my own. I'm supposed to show up, do my best, to do my best. I believe that's all the universe really wants from us. Do our best to do our best. Otherwise, we would have been made perfect. And so all of that stuff that you talk about is all that all day long. And that's another thing that in recovery, we learn to let go of. And you know what? So much nicer not to walk around with the weight, W-E-I-G-H-T, who said weight of the world? You did, right? With the weight of the world on our shoulders. And so that's also a choice. We learn that that's actually a choice that we make.
So another thing I came to realize is by being this perfect mother, because I really, that's what I strove for. I had to be the perfect wife, the perfect daughter, perfection is just like the realm in my world. That I was busy. I was so busy and it didn't stop running. From the minute I opened up my eyes till the minute I collapsed in bed at night, I didn't stop running, but I also didn't teach my kids about feelings. So I taught my kids how to do stuff and be stuff and get stuff done, but I never taught them how to express themselves or talk about things or tell me how are you really feeling, because I couldn't do it. I was stuffing my feelings and it was manifesting on the outside. So part of the aha became when I started looking at my 13-year-old who's struggling with the same things I did. And I haven't empowered him to be able to have other tools. We don't need to strive for that perfection in my world anymore, but we do need to be great human beings. A good, in terms of relationships, of being kind, considerate, and part of that is also towards ourselves. Because if we're not starting with ourselves, it's really hard to be that role model or for them to emulate and learn from us as well.
And the beginning of that, of us starting to practice self-love, again, is to realize that your opinion of me is none of my business. Because I show up the way that I show up. If you leave here and you're in love with me, or if you leave here and you hate me, that's got nothing to do with me. That's all I need to do is show up. And so once I start worrying about how I can manipulate you so that you'll like me, I mean, it's exhausting. And it also takes away from me just remembering that that's all I need to do is show up and do the best to do my best. That's all that I need to do. And the rest of the universe is going to turn the way that the rest of the universe turns. That really don't have nothing to do with me. That's it. My responsibility is done as long as I'm doing my best to do my best.
I would say that pressure is within my neighborhood as well. I have a great neighborhood, I really do, with lots of kids and things that my kids are, they hang out with, they have, but I have a lot of stay-at-home moms. And so every gathering they've made this unbelievable whatever they've cooked in this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I just walked in the door.
Don't fall for the Pinterest cupcake pressure.
Again,
pressure with that.
Again, so you're talking about how somebody else's opinion of you, your ego, or how you think Angeli sees you is more important than actually what you're doing.
It's true.
If the other stay-at-home moms, God bless them, that they could be stay-at-home moms, right? If the other stay-at-home moms have a challenge with you, it's because they're maybe resentful that they don't get to go to work, they have to hang out with their kids all day, We don't know. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Their opinion of you doesn't matter. If you're showing up and doing the next right thing, you've done what you need to do. End of discussion.
Thank you.
You have to set yourself free from a lot of that, Ellen.
You're on.
You really do. Just drop that shit at the door and walk away from it.
Resentment.
I'm glad I got some time, because my go-to resentment is from the relationship I have with my mother and food. Because my mother's a teeny tiny little thing. All growing up, she maybe weighed 100 pounds, and she lived on cigarettes and those orange circus peanut candies, or the orange jelly ones with the sugar on them.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And she didn't care about eating. Food was sort of an irrelevancy to her, like, oh, I forgot to eat. And I was always like, how do you do that?
Well,
like,
first of all,
I wake up and want to know what's for breakfast. I go to bed thinking what's for breakfast. Like, it's
Interruption again. She woke up and thought about smoking a cigarette.
100% true.
Right. So
100%
addiction's
true.
addiction.
Exactly.
Right.
But, from a child's perspective of that, what I had then was, she gave me this excuse when I started to gain weight as a child. Oh, you were a skinny little thing. I couldn't get you to eat anything. But then the babysitter started feeding you sweets and all of this. And as a child, I internalized that as an excuse for then being chubby. Okay. And my nickname from my mother for years was Chubette. And there was pressure from her all the time to lose weight.
Can you stop right there? Your mother's nickname for you was Chubette. How did that make you feel?
Well, really shitty.
Yeah.
It still does.
Yeah, of course it does.
It still does.
Of course it does. And
it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like, it's hurtful, but it's also embarrassing. So for a lot of those years, there was this pressure from her to lose weight. So the year before I went into high school, I was like 165 pounds, which I would love to be 165 pounds again. Thank you very much.
Amen.
And she put all this pressure. You don't want to start high school looking like that. You don't want to do this and this and this. So she put me on this diet, and I lost 35 pounds. And I was sitting on the kitchen floor, with my legs like this. And she said, look at the front of your leg. So I looked at the front of my leg, and she said, Jennifer, if you just lost 10 more pounds, and it was in that moment I went, I'm never going to be enough. It's never going to be thin enough. So I carried that resentment for a really long time, but in being able to sit here and kind of stew in it a little bit and think about it, it's time for me to realize that the resentment toward all of that needs to stop. The resentment is within me, and I kind of resent myself for not being able to drop that shit and be done with it. It's in the past, I can't change it. How do I learn how to acknowledge it, cope with it, let it go?
I'm going to tell you. And so how you do that, first of all, when you're a kid and your mother's calling you chubette, you have absolutely no defense, right? And I'm sure you love your mom, but for all
And
of
you
us,
believe it is the problem.
of course you do, because we learn what we live. And so for all of us, or any of us that have ever done that with our kids because we didn't know any better, wow, let's all look back on that, because we've all got something to learn about the way that we treat other people, our children or our next door neighbors or our dogs, right? The way that we learn to let go of the resentment, first as an adult, to understand that the way your mom acted has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Doesn't have nothing to do with you. Whether you were fat, whether you were skinny, whether you were tall, short, green, orange, white, black, ugly, it doesn't matter. That came from her, from her own insecurities and because of the way that she was brought up. And so, in time, I hope for you is that you'll be able to look at your mom as a woman who did her best.
I'm there already.
Right.
I really am.
Who did her best,
I am.
who didn't have people to help her to understand that what she was doing was wrong, that she was what she was going through, she was taking that out on you. And I know that it's still real painful because you say that you're doing it, but you're about to cry.
No, and it does still affect me because,
Yeah.
and I understand that her, in doing that to me, it was her perversion of trying to help me, and it does still hurt a lot.
I don't know if
but
it was her.
I understand that she, in her mind, that's what she thought was the most helpful thing.
Well, that's why we said she did her best as
Right.
far as helping you. That is what it is. And so it's us learning again, no matter how we grew up, that as long as we show up and do the next right thing, that even our moms' opinions of us are because of where they are, who they are, and where they've come from. And so there's not too
her
much that we
relationship
can
with
do
her
about
mother
that.
is a shit show.
Right, and so what you can do is make sure that you stop being mean to yourself and that you're not mean to your kids, you know? So even if you were overweight, you know, your mom never had to say anything to you. She could have just changed what you were eating. You know what I mean? Like it could have been that simple. And we can always approach anybody from a place of love if we decide that that's what we're gonna do, which is a whole lot easier when we do learn to do that self-love. And I'm sorry that you're still in so much pain about that.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Miss Brandy, good morning.
Good morning. I don't even know where to start. I guess seriously. Okay.
Honesty.
So one of the things growing up, grew up poor, so never had food in the house ever, and so I would have to go to friends or school or something just to even eat. And then on top of it, my dad was very abusive,
Mm-hmm.
physically, mentally, all the above.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did get around food, I inhaled it.
Mhm.
Like, that was like my only way out at the time. So that's a big one.
And so, yeah, so that deprivation from the outside world, understandably as a kid, once we feel deprived, we want more of, right? So fear is, the definition of fear that we use is being afraid that we're gonna lose what we have or that we're not gonna get what we want. And so as a child, of course, with that deprivation, you're gonna fill yourself up. First of all, because emotionally you weren't filled up. And as a matter of fact, emotionally, everything that you even had was taken away from you, right? And so spiritually, you weren't filled up with nothing except for abuse, right? And so that's so understandable that that's the way that you viewed the world when you were younger. And then we have to, again, relearn the way that we think. And so relearning that thinking is understanding the world was the way that it was. So Angeli and I talk a lot about a situation was a situation that happened, right? It's over. The emotional attachment that we had, that's the stuff that we work on. And so my hope for you is as you work, as you're doing your step work, which you are, that you'll learn too, that right now, you know, you are actually an amazing young lady, but you have a lot to give yourself and a lot to give others as well. And that right now you're not deprived, and that you are doing your best to do your best, and to let go of, especially with abusive situations, it's a lot of work to let go of that. But if we're gonna be healthy, that's the choice that we have. And so it's perspective. It's gonna be about being able to look at your dad, because I grew up with a dad who was an alcoholic. You know my dad, so you see my dad differently than I grew up. So I grew up with a dad who was in active addiction. For me to be able to look at him now and say, you know what, WTF, man, he was an addict, so am I. You know, he actually did the best he could with what he had. Was that enough? No. Do I have abandonment issues? Yes. But learning to go through that and say, you know what, the dude was the dude that he was. That was the hand that I was dealt as a child, and as an adult, I get to choose my hand. And so that's what we work on, is choosing that hand, is learning, which you're already learning, because in the beginning, when we first met, you talked about how miserable you were. And I was like, we ain't gonna talk about that no more, right? We're gonna switch our perspective and start talking about letting go of those resentments and talking about how we will step into the solution and learn how to be happy. And that was brave of you for sharing. Thank you so much for sharing. Good morning.
Hi.
Oh, we're going back.
I'm Sharon, by the way.
Hi,
Good
welcome.
morning.
Nice to meet you guys. It's the first time I came here, and I don't even know what to say.
Okay, fair enough. So we were just talking about resentments, and you're never ever gonna have to say anything here. So this is a safe zone. It's a non-judgmental zone. So if you have something to say, that's awesome, and if you don't, that's cool too. Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. That way.
Hi.
Okay. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Suzanne. They call me Peanut Butter.
Yes, they do.
I rushed so much. It's like all week. It's all I could think about was to get here.
Awesome.
Like, oh my God, this is like so incredible for me. Yeah, it's funny because I never really share about like what you guys are talking about, my childhood. And thank God, like I have to say, I had an amazing childhood and really, really close family with my mom and dad. They divorced young, well, when I was whatever, 15, 16, but they were still friends, like I'm still friends with my ex, you know, so that was like very important.
Mm-hmm.
We all moved to Florida. But the thing is, like I was a really thin kid, and somewhere along the line, I don't even know, I guess I had a thyroid problem, so I would just eat and eat and eat, and it never affected me. But my mom, like, was the perfect, if so perfect,
Mm-hmm.
like, growing up, I mean, she still was until she just passed away, like 2 years ago, dressed to the max. Her jewelry would match it. Had no braces. God forbid we needed braces or glasses, or, you know, we had to be like, not had to be, but I always wanted to be like, oh, I want to be like my mom. My mom and my sister is like the smart one. And I always felt like I used to hear my mom on the phone when I was little. She loved me so, I mean, it's not a question. But I somehow interpreted it that way. She never said I was a bad daughter or anything, but she used to say, yeah, well, my older daughter put herself through school. And my older daughter, like my sister was the one, you know, my brother is younger than I, so he's the baby family. But I don't know why, I interpreted it because I just used to eat and be like, and then I started smoking pot when I was 13, and that was cool, you know, and then my parents would smoke, so that was cool, like, I was accepted because, like, I'd say to people, what do you mean? My dad smokes because he did it before the generation of us, so my father used to say, I'd rather you smoke with me than go out and just smoke.
And so the resentment?
Well, I don't know, I always just wanted to be like my sister, and I always wanted to be like my mom.
And so we're going to translate that to you grew up feeling like you weren't good enough. right?
Yeah.
Like your mom was better than you, that your sister was better than you, that you were never going to own up. You were never going to be. So if I think that you're not going to be, then I'm never going to be as good as you, it's because I feel less than you. And so those feelings of less than make us feel ashamed because we feel like no matter how good we do, we're never going to be there where the other folks are. And so we feel embarrassed and ashamed of ourselves, a little bit sad, maybe a little bit scared that we're never going to get there where we want to get. And so when we internalize that, we either get ulcers, right, or we get addicted. You know what I mean? Like we're going to do whatever it is that we do to fill ourselves back up, to change the receptors in the brain, to change the way that we're feeling right now.
But it was me that put that on. Like I was,
Yeah.
my mother never put me down.
Yeah,
You know, whatever.
And the thing is that when we're little, and there are these things called schemas, and so we learn when we're little that we viewed the world a certain way, and that was just our perspective because our whole entire life is our perspective. But now that we're adults and we learn and we understand and we get to choose, we get to figure out what those were and then work on letting them go, letting go of the resentments, even if that resentment now is with myself because I'm doing something to myself to hurt myself and I don't even think I had a good reason. So now I have all kinds of reasons to beat myself up, right? And so we're gonna learn to let go of that as well. So, good share. Johnny?
Am I deluded to think I've worked out all my resentment?
Yes, you're deluded to think that, and I love that you said that. I do. I love you. Always say something that like hits me somewhere, so I absolutely love that. Yeah, and so, you know, I walk around like that too. You know, we said we put up on Facebook, you know, 3 things that you're jealous of. Who will share? And I'm like, now I have to think of 3 things that I'm jealous of because you know I'm so fabulous, so perfect, and so here that. You know, how can I possibly, my recovery is so great. But yeah, when I thought about it, there were a couple of things that I was jealous of or resentful of still.
Was resentful or now? I think you said it was resentful now.
Yeah,
Unless I misunderstood.
Okay, and so if you don't think that you have any resentments now, that's perfect. That's okay.
I'm going to be 63. I really worked them out. I'm a practicing Buddhist, and I see it through that prism, and it's helped me kind of really understand.
When you relapse, do you resent yourself?
I resent that I have that challenge.
So you're resentful against your addiction?
Yeah, sure.
Fair enough.
I don't know if is that resentful. It bugs me that I have to deal with it. Is that resentful? Isn't resentful being juxtaposed to something or someone else or
No. I got all kinds of resentments against myself, actually. You know, that I work on daily. You know, after my kid died, the way that I wasn't with my other children, you know, the things that I did to myself because of my guilt and my shame. So there were slews of resentments that I had against myself. And so resentment doesn't mean that, yeah, we say drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So when we resent ourselves, we get to drink the poison and die. So, for sure. So, yeah. So, but thanks. So, and yeah, you are working through that stuff, and that's awesome.
Can I add something? And,
Sure.
And I'd be curious to hear your take on that too. that you know, over the years, I guess you accumulate some wisdom. And one of the things, you know, I read at some point that you have a 1 in 4 trillion chance of ever being born, and it's just, and if life is a gift, to compare yourself to whatever someone else's mishigas or something, it doesn't seem like a good idea to me.
It's not a good idea. And ideally, we're all going to wake up tomorrow morning and say, we're resentment free. And we're never going to have to go to a meeting or do anything or choose to go to a meeting or anything else like that because we're just going to be amazingly evolved. Right? Whose hierarchy is that? Maslow's theory of hierarchy, right? So we're going to be, you know, completely self-evolved and be at one with the spirit world and never have any more problems.
And I could eat normally, and I resent my husband when he can sit down and eat chocolates and desserts, and I just choose not to because I choose not to. And those little chocolates, I resent them sometimes because they call my name.
But isn't
And
that different? Like, I resent thin guys who have all their hair, you know, fuck them. But
Okay, so there's your resentment. Why do you resent them? Why do you resent them?
I don't really resent them.
Okay.
You know, it's just, you know, and you get what you get. You deal with what you get. You know, the deal is the obstacles that you're presented with. That's the deal. That's the trade-off. And the trade-off is that, or you're dead.
Well,
You're dead. We're not having a life.
Right, but for us here, what we're doing is we're all learning how to spiritually feel better, how to let go of the outside stuff, and how to realize that spiritually that we can make ourselves okay. Are we going to go through stuff? Absolutely. Are we going to get angry and pissed off and resentful at times and fearful at times? Absolutely. How long do I want to sit in my shit?
Right, and part of that is while we're sitting in the shit, then we're waiting to die. I mean, it's essentially being so busy to the point that we're killing ourselves that eventually we do die and we've missed the whole movie in between, and we turn around and we're 50 years old and we're miserable and we're unhappy and we don't wake up smiling and singing in the morning or dancing spontaneously or just being able to enjoy the beauty around us.
Yeah, the moment. This moment. Like right now, I'm so grateful for this moment and for you guys being here and everybody who shows up, because everybody that's here, whether you know it or not, has put out their hand to help another recovering addict. And that's friggin' amazing, man. Imagine if the whole entire universe was like that. Like how amazing, right?
So the big question now becomes how to, because we've all reached this point where we've got the resentments. And interesting, last night, I'm sitting at this concert. I go to a concert. I know nothing about the people I'm going to see. So a friend of mine goes, I've got a ticket. Do you want to come? I said, sure. So I get over my fears of crowds and all the noise in my head, and I go. And it was awesome. I heard two bands I've never heard before. It's in Palm Beach in this amphitheater that's outside. The best sunset. And all of a sudden, I'm not high. I'm not stoned. I haven't had anything to drink. I'm not smoking cigarettes. And normally I'd be tripping on something, ecstasy, pot, something. I mean, that's what I did for concerts. To be able to get in the moment and enjoy them, I'd have to be on something, eating, whatever.
Isn't that what a concert is?
Yeah, well, not really.
So not last night. And for the first time, I actually felt my eyes turn outwards, which is really weird because they're being turned inward so much. I've been sitting inside my own head, that I've been thinking about everything. What happens if I do this? And what about this? And why did you do that? And I spend so much time in here that I forget what is going on around me out here. And it's quite amazing through recovery and being in the program. And part of it has started with the most simple thing. And the most simple thing started with gratitude. And it starts with the gratitude of every single day starting to practice the gratitude of 3 things that I'm grateful for. It's as simple as that being the first step, because when we start looking at the things we're grateful for, we start looking at the things we're resentful for.
Right.
And our world starts shifting. So we do have a gratitude group, and it's really, all of your gratitudes are just, they make me feel so good at night. So we swap gratitudes between each other, whether you respond or you don't. It's amazing how that shift starts happening because you start smiling. I mean, there's just, something happens.
You know, what happens is the more that we look at what's amazing in our life, and sometimes even just being happy for what was amazing in your life yesterday, the more that we look at that we're grateful for, the more grateful we are. You know, it has to do not only with our attitude actually at that point, but our brain chemistry. So brain chemistry, happy, we release endorphin, right? So it has to do a lot with that as well. And that's just retraining our brain that, yeah, you know, we talked about this last week too, that I could be grateful that the thorn bushes have roses, or be resentful that rose bushes have thorns. You know, and so I like to use that one because it's a great visual for me. So I like to use that one, and that is the truth. Yes, ma'am.
Do you think it's helpful before you go to sleep just to write down what happened during
So we all do.
You're grateful for during
We all
the
do.
day?
And so we have a group that I hope that you'll join tonight, and we all do 3 things that we're grateful for and our strength for the day. And then we share that with each other.
So one of the other things I came to realize, I've got a 17-year-old who just stepped up on Friday. He's now a senior. I realized that kids get out of diapers at some stage. You know, all kids get out of diapers if they're healthy. and they all learn to walk, and they will be okay, whatever journey they're going on. So I really have to step out of other people's circuses. It's your monkeys, your circus. I can't take on everything and fix everything, because when he goes off to college, he has to be empowered enough to be able to make decisions, because I've been making every single decision, and then I go be free and sort everything out. So it's now starting to step back and realize that if I'm not controlling everything, things still work out and things are still okay. I've got,
By the way, not if I'm not controlling everything, but if I'm not delusional enough to think that I'm controlling everything, because we don't, right? We're in control of what?
our reaction.
Right, our perspective and our actions. And doing the best that we can, right?
100%.
That's it. So yeah, what you said is really funny. I love that you said that.
Right.
Awesome.
So between the 13-year-old and the 17-year-old, it's like the complete monkey chatter in my head. So it's being able to say, where do I fit in this greater picture? I mean, I've given up, and this is how I see it, which is part of my resentment. So I've given up all this time. Love doing it because I'm the mother and I gave birth to them, and I have to love it. I mean, that's what we were, biologically brought up to do. But no, it hasn't been great, and it hasn't been fun, and teenagers suck, and middle school, half the mothers are as crazy as the kids, and shit, I'm not that happy about the whole experience. I wish I would have come with a better manual. They just didn't come with a manual.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And there's no manual.
So where do I fit in the greater scheme? I can't be that person that I resent at the end of the day, because I become mean and I become nasty when I start using and abusing, and I'm in pain and I'm not happy the way I am. So we have to change that perspective.
Can you bring up what I wrote on Facebook the other day about my son?
Yes. So part of it is the tools that I'm getting through Felice. And part of those tools is gratitude, because it makes me appreciate not only me, but this amazing life that we've been given. We've got a roof over our head, we've got food on the table, reliable cars that take us to where we want to go. We are really truly blessed in so many other ways than the stuff that we don't have. And also being in this community, when I find I'm overwhelmed, instead of walking to my best friend, which is in the kitchen, and it's a little square box that keeps all that stuff in it. I go to my best friend and I go, I'm having a really shit day and I'm full of resentment. And these are my resentments of the day.
Can you see it?
I can't see it.
Do you
I'm
want
too
to?
old to see that. Yeah, but I'm going to read. So when we talk about, especially with, sometimes we resent our kids. Of course we do. We resent that we have to take care of them, and that, well, we don't have to do nothing, but that we chose to take care of them, and maybe I wanted to do something that I couldn't do. And we talk about a lot of the resentments that we have actually is our enabling them, and we look back at ourselves and how we enabled our kids. And I'm going to ask everybody, especially with your children, not to wait till God forbid something happens to realize the beauty in that relationship. And so Friday was the anniversary of my 17-year-old's death. I actually had an amazing relationship with him, so I was super fortunate. I'm not going to read what I wrote on Facebook because it's very, very little and I'm kind of old. So can you see it?
Yeah, I can read it for you.
So this is what I posted on the anniversary of his death. And I'm going to tell you that he died a long time ago, that I was in treatment for 6 months, inpatient treatment for depression and addiction. So this stuff didn't happen. Like, I was insane, fearful. My world was so little and so big at the same time. And I was so petrified about everything. And it took a whole lot of money, a whole lot of recovery work. And it's something, of course, that I always still work on. But this is really how I feel right now. And so this is what I posted. So if you could read it.
Today, on the anniversary of my son's death, let his beautiful spirit remind us to begin each day as if it was on purpose, and live each day as if it was our last. Tell those you love how much they are cherished, and those who are kind how much they are appreciated. Life is a gift. Accept it, unwrap it, and experience all of its joy now. To you, my son Eddie, I send love and gratitude for 17 wonderful years of miracles shared. And to all of you who fill my life with endless moments of happiness, I thank you so much from my heart.
Yeah. And so, again, so for so long, my son died. And for so long, I was so sick and so fearful. And so something happened in my life, right? There was an event that happened in my life. And I got to use, and that's when I started drinking. I got to use, and everybody signed off on my using because poor Felice, I was a victim because my kid died. But the thing is, I didn't need people's, what I needed was help. I needed somebody to say, you know what, this happened, and life happens, you guys. Life is gonna show up, and it's gonna happen. And how long did I stay sick? A really long time. I stayed sick and scared a really, really, really long time until it got to the point where I had that gift of desperation. The last time that I tried to kill myself, I wound up in a treatment center. Thank you, Susan, for saving my life. I wound up in a treatment center, and I started to learn about recovery. And I started to understand that the event was an event, and that the emotions that I have attached to that event, I could work through. And so I can't go back and make him undead, but I can work on those emotions that I had attached to his death. So many horrible emotions. And so you guys, that's recovery. Like, it's scary and it sucks. You know, I went through that thing where if I let go of the emotions, I'm letting go of my son. But that's not true, because letting go of the emotions allows me to honor my son, you know, and honor his life as opposed to just thinking about how he died. And so the reason why I share that with you guys is because that was my experience, and that's when I started using. And so for me, it's almost easier because it's easier to see. You don't have to really go back to the other stuff. I had a bunch of other stuff that happened in my life, but I was always seeing a therapist. So I kind of learned to get through a lot of that stuff. But this was relearning how to live and relearning how to live happy, which I never thought that I could do. And so if I could learn how to relive happy, I believe in every single one of you. And I believe that every single one of you can look at what happened, what didn't happen, what you're afraid of, and learn to work through that and learn to wake up happy in the morning.
So I wanted to go around and just check in with everyone because we only have 15 minutes left. Time starts really going really quickly. And I just wanted to check in and see where everyone is at the moment, and
In what respect?
just whatever's coming to
Yeah, if
mind.
anybody has anything to
Right.
share.
As you listen to everybody talking about their experiences, especially as a child, so as a mother and wanting to do things right where the right mother had, and you have those teenagers and you want to make sure that they're successful in life, and you always want more for your child than maybe what you had.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fine line with their emotional state to make sure that you're correcting and guiding them,
Mm-hmm.
but not killing them at the same time. No.
Yeah,
Right, but there's things where you really you get in that argument with them, and but you don't want to criticize to the point where you're affecting their self-esteem, and it's really difficult to discipline firmly without crossing a line.
So let me ask you something.
Does that where it
Yes,
doesn't affect them?
that makes so much sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so for me to say, let's say you stayed out all night, okay, right? You've experienced that. So let's say you stayed out all night, you're 17, stayed out all night and didn't call, and stayed out all night and shows up the next morning. We have a couple of choices, right? We can scream and rant and carry on, which is what it's kind of our default, and how dare you do this to me, and you, or we can sit that 17-year-old down and say, you know what you did last night was scary and it was hurtful, kind of makes me feel like you don't care enough about me and you don't care enough about yourself, and I'm going to let you know that in my home that it's an unacceptable behavior, and so these are going to need to be your consequences. Now, I've just said what I've said, right? You're my kid, you're still going to hate me in the moment because I'm going to give you consequences. But whether I scream and rant and act like a maniac and stay in that moment, I done that. Whether we stay in that, or we just, the whole thing, you guys, too, emotionally is learning how to relate to ourselves and then relate to others, right? And to say how we feel instead of being afraid to say how we feel. I always say, don't tell me what I did. If you and I are having a conversation and I get pissed off and I hang up on you, and you call me back and you say, I can't believe you hung up on me. Well, I can, because I just hung up on you. So I can believe that. If you say to me, you know what, Felice, we're friends, and when you hang up on me because you're angry, kind of makes me feel a bit unloved, and maybe that you don't care about the way that I feel. And so I'm going to ask you in the future, if you're angry with me, just to say that you're angry with me. Right? So that's rethinking our relationship emotionally with ourselves and how we relate to the outside world as well.
I work very hard I have 3 children. 19, 16, and 14. And they're amazing. They're the best kids in the whole wide world. Swear to God, not even kidding. And
so not kidding?
Not
Not
kidding.
kidding.
I will go toe to toe with anybody who disagrees with me about it. But what I found with them, because of what I grew up with, is I refuse to demoralize them.
Good.
We talk feelings and boundaries.
Awesome.
And that's how I do that. These are my boundaries as a parent. And just because you're a kid doesn't mean you're not allowed to have boundaries.
Absolutely.
However, your boundaries need to fit within my acceptable boundary, things like that. And I'm kind of laughing through this thing with the kids and all, because just this morning I found this video of a dog licking a plate glass window, and it's stupid looking. The nose gets smushed and it's the tongue and all of this. And I sent it to my oldest daughter who's away in college on Facebook, and I wrote, "I love you, I miss you, I'd like to bite your face." And that's me talking, not this window licking dog. But I don't find there's hard times with teenagers.
Of course.
But I find that when you are coming from, I'm not going to put you down and make you feel bad about how you treated me or what you did. And if you're talking about boundaries and feelings, it's actually a lot easier, because I've taught my kids what I protect in myself, which is you can't judge how I feel. If I'm telling you I feel this way, you can't tell me I'm wrong.
Right, because feelings aren't facts.
Right.
They're just feelings.
And I've taught them that. You can tell me how you feel, and then if how you feel isn't how I thought you would feel or not what I intended, like we can work that kind of crap out. But
So that's awesome. And so a lot of times I think in life we look at, you were very judged. And so you're not judging your kids.
I can't make myself
Fair enough.
do it.
And so that's awesome. Yes.
And this brings up a really interesting perspective for me in terms of food addiction, emotional eating, and compulsive overeating. When I get those cravings and it becomes the argument between that obsession on my mind where it's a craving and the willpower, thinking and cravings are not facts either. So me acting out on that and going through the drive-through is because I feel like it doesn't mean to say I have to do it. It's not a fact. It's not, I can either answer the call or I don't need to answer the call.
Or you can make a call and
Right.
call somebody
Exactly.
and say, "Hey, right now I feel like losing. Talk me down."
I've
from
had
it,
so many
right?
food dreams this past week.
It's
so bad,
Same as
so
drug
bad.
dreams.
And I wake up with that horror that I ate the thing in the dream and kind of unhinged what I've done. And I know we talked about that a little bit last week, because I created a mantra. I thought a lot and hard when I left last week, and it was great, and it felt really good, because I know that this is a work in progress.
We all
always, and will be forever. And so I made up a mantra for myself, and I started my little journal and my thing, and the thing that the saying that I created for myself is, I can choose to, or I can choose not to. However, I choose.
Right, and so you
And
only
I'm
have
just
how you
kind
choose.
of doing that
Right,
now.
and that's what we have, is that choice. That's it. Our recovery is a choice. The way that we're changing ourselves is a choice. Showing up is a choice. Whether you're happy or not, you know what? You guys come, which is so amazing. That's the first choice that you made to get better, whether we realize it or not. Whether we hate this place or not, it's still a conscious choice and a conscious decision that you made. And so that's all we have. I can't choose what you do, but I can choose what I do. Anybody? Oh, sorry. No, it's okay. Don't ever. We don't say we're sorry in this room. We say we're awesome.
Okay.
So you can say, "Oh, I'm awesome." I'll let somebody else share. Or, "I'm awesome," and I'm going to share
I'm
for a
going to
minute.
interrupt right now.
Yeah.
That's how we do that, right?
Yeah.
I was listening to Jen speak of her children, and I would say my biggest concern with my three, which is 19, 15, and 8. My middle child is my daughter, and my oldest and youngest are my sons. And the dynamics of them is, my oldest is very successful. He's brilliant. And so he's a hard one to follow step with. My youngest is like this born given athlete who gets complimented left and right and left and right. He's smart. He's not quite like the oldest. And then there's the middle child, and she's beautiful and I love her, but she feels the youngest is cute and always complimented, and the oldest, well, he's going to a fantastic college and he got every award there was known to man in high school, and it's really hard in her place. And she's not the skinny one. She's she has a lot of my body right now. So it's hard to parent and build her self-esteem and keep her on the right path because it's
So
the world is the way it is. I mean, I can't change
Exactly. And
who
so-
these other, I can't.
right, and so what you're gonna find is as you evolve and change yourself, your relationship with the way that you look at her, the way you treat her, the way you see her, and the way that she sees you. One of the most important things. The way that she sees you working and evolving and taking care of yourself, because our kids do learn what we live. And so that's gonna be helpful too. As far as the parenting stuff, that's a really, really, really huge conversation. But the thing is now is we know that the one thing that you can be working on is your own recovery, the way that you look at yourself, and then in turn the way that you're gonna help your children to look at themselves.
So from the discussion from today, what we're going to be discussing next week is our emotional attachment to the food and actually letting go of how
So what we're gonna talk about next week, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna talk about next week actually is how our life in addiction is so scary, but thinking about living our life without our addiction is even scarier. And so we're gonna learn that, and people are shaking their head, right? And so I know how to live as an addict. I know if I'm scared or down or resentful or emotional, I know that I can eat 60 Hershey bars or that I could eat 60 Percocet. Same. And so that part I know how to do. I know how to do that part. I know how to starve myself for a week. I know how to do that. It's about what happens when I take that away and I'm fearful or emotional. That part in the beginning always looks scarier to the addict than the lives that we know. And so we're gonna talk about the fear of change and the fear of living our life without our addiction to fall back on. And again, I said this last time, but I always said when I first went into treatment, it would be so much easier to go through treatment if I could use.
Yeah.
Because then I'm kind of learning stuff while I don't have to go through those feelings and emotions that now I'm going to feel without using.
So we're going to have to start wrapping up. So there are a couple of steps that we go through to be able to work on our recovery. The first one is being willing and open to try something different, which
You all did. You all made that decision today to be willing and open and try something different. So kudos to every single one of you in this room.
To have a plan of action, and that plan of action as a food addict and as a compulsive emotional overeater, I have to have a food plan. I can't ascertain what a serving is. It's just not one of the things I can do. And also I then obsess about food compulsively if I haven't planned what I'm doing for the day and actually prepare for it and have a food plan. So having someone who's an accountability partner was an awesome idea. I'm also going to start posting it on Facebook. Our group is a closed group.
What is the name of the group?
So it's Honesty and
Honesty
Courage.
and Courage. One
Just
word.
join it, and we can post our food plans there. We can do, if you don't use Facebook, just either text it to us or send it to us in WhatsApp.
Yeah, you can do
We've
it on
got
your
our-
WhatsApp, and we do a gratitude list if that's easier for you.
I'm sorry, what's the name of the group again?
Honesty and
Honesty and Courage.
all spelled out.
Yeah.
So
One
you
word.
can also get my telephone number after this and text me, and I'll put you straight into the group. So the plan of action is not only having the food plan, but also having someone you can call if you need
Accountability partner.
to. An
Awesome.
accountability partner is
Awesome.
awesome.
Thank you.
Showing up is huge. So if you live within a 20-minute drive up here, you should be at a meeting. It's far better than being online, because face-to-face is just so much more valuable than doing it through electronically. And also being of service. When we step out of our heads and into another space, and it's being of service not because we have to, but because we want to. It's not just showing up to the baseball game to hand out the snacks, which, hello, but it's doing things that reaching out your hand to someone who needs help, or being of service to a friend in need. There's many other ways of being in service for our own recovery.
Yeah, and every time you guys share, you never ever know if what you just said was pivotal for somebody else emotionally, for how they're going to go through their day feeling today, for what they've learned from what you've shared.
So most of us in this room came here because of somebody else. Someone introduced us to it, or someone brought us to recovery, but most of us came here because someone else, so please extend your hand. As a compulsive overeater, I have trigger foods. There's certain foods that if I put them on my body, I am allergic to them, as much as I wish I wasn't, and I prayed I wasn't, and I hoped I wasn't, and that whole resentment cycle, which I'm letting go, if I stay away from them, and I choose to stay away from them because the consequences of putting them in are far worse than just leaving them alone and they stop talking to me. Mine are wheat and starches, like certain starches. Everyone is different. Some people don't have them, but I know what mine are. Gratitude is essential. Join our group, send it to a friend, write it down. It doesn't matter how you do it, but
If people out there want to do the WhatsApp thing with us, how do they get
They
in touch
just
with
contact us via Facebook, say, add me to WhatsApp.
Okay, fair enough.
Really that simple. There are a million ways through our page on Facebook, the Why Wait for Recovery page, our sowhywait.net, our website, through messaging us. You just tell us we're here to help, just ask for help. It's that simple.
Actually, asking for help really isn't that simple. That's why we're here. So, right. But yes, it can be. Right? We could choose for it to be that simple.
So we have two meetings. We meet Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. The door's open. Come on in. You just walk in. You're welcome. Wednesday night at 9 p.m. we also have a meeting as well. It's a little bit different. And we are so happy that you joined us today. You made our day. And this is...
So I borrowed this from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's called The Promises, and I'm going to read it to you. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, I love that they use the word scale, no matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook on life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that the universe does for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? I don't think so. They're being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but they will always materialize if we work for them. I'm blessed and grateful to be in recovery. My name is Felice. I need to thank each and every one of you for coming here and sharing your morning with me.
And I'm blessed and grateful to be in recovery, and my name's Haiti. And have a beautiful week.
Peace out.
If someone isn't on Facebook and I wanted to send them,